All right, welcome everybody. We're excited you're here. Welcome to another Imbibe session. I am Denise Silverman. I'm the Executive Director at the Wine and Food Foundation. And tonight's class is The Power of Piemonte. And I think we are all very excited about these wines here in front of us. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Some quick updates on things happening at the foundation. So our Imbibe classes are still going weekly, alternating Wednesdays and Thursdays. Next week is Thursday, April 1st, and the class is called It's a Spring Thing. And this is an interactive chef demo with chef and sommelier Jaime Jose. And for those participating, we'll be sending you a list of ingredients and you'll go out and get those on your own. And then Chef Jose will lead us through the class and through the cook. So it should be a really fun class. It's a lamb loin and spring succotash paired with a lambrusco. So that should be super fun. We've got a good registration so far and hope to see some of you there as well. Following that, Wednesday, April 7th is Wines of the Loire Valley, and that's hosted by Steve Alley. And then Thursday, April 15th is our first in-person event in what feels like forever. It is a tour and tasting at the Treaty Oak Distillery. And this class, because it's our first in-person event and we just kind of want to, keep it limited and also by the venue standards as well, it'll be limited to 10 people. I think we already have 7 signed up. So keep that in mind. It's open. We have staggered registrations with members, Epicurean, then Connoisseur. Those are open right now. Aficionado opens on Friday, and then non-members, if there are still tickets, will be on Tuesday. And what else? Oh, we're continuing our celebration of Women's History Month. This has been just a really fun program that has really grown into something bigger than we thought it would be, and it's been a whole lot of fun. We featured some amazing women thus far. Today's post was about 2 wine industry powerhouses, including Jeremy Law of Jeremy Wines and Daniela DaSuta, who just happens to be hosting our class tonight. So we're really excited to feature them. So be sure to check out our social media, comment, engage, share. It's been a really fun month to be able to feature all these amazing women in our local industry. So now is the time when I usually say, please say hello to my colleague, Hillary Weldy. And sadly, we're also going to be saying goodbye because this is Hillary's last Imbibe class. She's leaving the foundation. She's moving on to another opportunity, and we're all gonna miss her tremendously. I know a lot of you all know her very well, and you'll miss her. But we're all really happy for her. She's been with the foundation for 7+ years, and she was ready for something new and exciting. So we're all really happy for her and gonna miss her. And also on a personal note, I would have died without her here for my first 9 months on this job. So I'm very thankful for that. Okay, so, lastly, I think a lot of you have been here since we started this, but we also we started doing a new feature in the class called The Last Sip. So at the end of the class, before we sign off, we will ask you all to tell us something that you're taking away from this class, whether it's, an amazing new wine that you're putting on your top 10 list, or some funny anecdote, or like I've already got one, which is the 68 degrees kitchen. So anything that you are taking away from tonight's class, we'd love to hear what that is. So with that, let's get to the tasting. I mentioned this earlier. Let me just mention it again for anyone who just joined us. The order of the tasting changed from the email that we sent this morning. So we'll be starting with the Barbera, followed by the Dolcetto, and then the Nebbiolo. And I'd like to introduce our host for tonight's session, Daniela DaSuta. Daniela, if you'll maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll roll right into the tasting.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Denise. Thank you for having me. And Hillary, I didn't know it was your last day. Congratulations. I wanted to say that first and foremost. That's awesome. And I've really enjoyed working for you. or with you, not for you, but with you. My name is Daniela DaSuta. I moved to Texas for my mother to actually start a Texas winery back in 2006 called the Vineyard at Florence. And like many college students that didn't know what they wanted to do, I went back and worked for my family business and fell in love with wine, because how could you not? And eventually really gravitated towards the education side. So about 6 years ago, I started working for the Texas Wine School as their lead educator. So if anybody is ever interested in levels 1 through 3 of WSET and want an actual PIN and certification, please let me know. And I also, as my day job, work for a company called Vivant. So I am a personal wine buyer of sorts, and I ship organic and biodynamic French wines directly from small producers to people's doorstep. So we skip the middleman, and I get to represent a portfolio that I'm truly proud of. There's not a bad wine in the lot. So while I should perhaps be talking about French wine, I do all the time, and I thought it would be really fun to talk about something different. So hence we're in Piemonte this evening. Do you want me to keep going, or do you have more to say, Denise? Do you want me to launch into everything?
Yeah, no, it's all you.
Okay. All right. Awesome, guys. Well, as Denise said, we have our lineup that slightly changed. We're going to start with the Barbera and then try the Dolcetto, and we're going to end up with the Nebbiolo. And if you guys have them poured side by side, you might think I'm crazy because the Nebbiolo looks so much lighter than the rest of them. But there is a reason for that Nebbiolo is just a naturally pale grape. And so it's really actually the biggest, fullest in body, and it's the highest in that mouth drying sensation, that tannin. So bear with me. I promise I think I know what I'm talking about as far as the lineup, but you can definitely feel free to disagree. And I also want you to say, or want you to know that I'm going through a bit of theory in the very beginning, but obviously you guys have cracked everything open. I hope you have them side by side. You're already noticing them, sipping on them. The whole point is to be drinking throughout this presentation. So feel free to start indulging, and also feel free to ask any questions. I'm an open book. I really, really prefer if this is an interactive session. And of course, Denise, Hillary, you'll help me in the chat if there's any questions that come up. But again, feel free, everybody, to unmute and ask me anything you want to know. And we're going to talk about Piemonte through the lens of one of the most legendary producers. And his name is Bruno Giacosa. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a little bit of a presentation for you, and we'll talk about his history briefly, and we'll talk about these three incredible wines that we have in front of us. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yeah, okay, perfect. So I'm going to go to this presentation. All right. See it? Cool. So this guy rocks, first of all, and his wines rock too. So we're actually going to back up and talk a bit about Piemonte as a whole. And Piemonte, has anybody ever been? You want to raise your hand if you've ever been to Piemonte before? Okay, a few of you have, but not many. This is not manicured Tuscany. Okay, this is not this beautiful, like very well-groomed Italian countryside that we see in the photos or in Italian travel brochures. This is rugged, wild Italy. And it's located in the northwest portion of Italy in the foot of the Alps. So Piemonte literally means foot of the mountain, and it's Italy's second largest region behind Sicily. So it's quite large, but it's very rural. It's quite a poor region too, or it was historically quite poor. And but conversely, this has no inferior wine. Like they don't make less than premium quality wine here. If you guys are familiar with the Italian labeling system, you'll know that there's DOCs, DOCGs. This is Denominazione di Origine Controllata or Garantita, which means that these are subregions that are guaranteed by the Italian government to be of a certain quality and to taste a certain way. And that's really remarkable that there are no inferior regions for these producers to fall back on. So we do know that there's Barolo and Barbaresco here, which if you are familiar with Piemonte, you know that these DOCGs are known for Nebbiolo. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, we don't have a Barolo or Barbaresco in front of us tonight, but I really thought it was exciting and cost effective to showcase some of the other native grape varieties that Piemonte has. You'll notice that they were only talking about native varieties, which are, I put autochthonous varieties, which it makes me sound smarter, so I like to put that in there. And that's essentially just grape varieties that originated within this region, and they all did originate in Italy. So that's pretty phenomenal. Like if you ever study Italy, if you ever dive into the depths of this country, you'll realize that there are over 2,000 native grape varieties. That's insane. That's insane. And the funny thing is, you don't really see them anywhere else, do you? I mean, yes, there are some perhaps boutique producers in California making Nebbiolo. I know Sagazio does. There are a few other producers that might produce Barbera, but on the whole, this is Italy's thing. And this is because these grapes are so well suited to their environment, and it's really kind of difficult to grow them anywhere else. So I've enclosed a few pictures. You can see the fog. If you go and if you ever drive in the Alps, it's just so foggy. In fact, I was with my mother. We were just the two of us driving from Liguria to Piemonte in a small little rental car and screaming at each other the entire way because it was so foggy and so windy. And we really were very terrified. I've never heard my mother scream at me the way she did, because we did almost crash a few times. So I'll never forget that. So I'm going to keep going and talk about the regional history. This is characterized really by extremely small land holdings. These are smaller growers. And as I said, it was historically a very poor region. So this didn't have a lot of money funneled into it. 2 world wars sort of kind of decimated the economy for a while. And then there was a focus on industry. But how does this relate to wine? Well, the very poor growers could only really sell their grapes to cooperatives, which were essentially larger conglomerates that bought the wines or bought the grapes and then sold them under their own labels. But that actually all shifted in the 60s and 70s as more money, more investments were funneled into Piemonte, and people could start actually creating their own wines with their own labels. And that's where Giogosa kind of comes in. And this is a new generation of growers, growers with certain ideas. And you had actually a lot of familial fragmentation because the sons, mainly the sons, there really weren't daughters making wine at that time. The sons would be like, hey, I'm going to make wine in a completely traditional or non-traditional way and break with tradition. So I'm going to use brand new French oak rather than like old Slovenian oak. And their fathers were like, no, you're not. No, you're not. We're going to disown you. And in fact, many children were disowned because of their new practices and their break from tradition. So I want you to understand that there is a traditional way to make Barolo and there is a modern way to make Barolo. And I think Giocosa mainly follows the traditional, which we're going to get into exactly what that means, but there is a bit of a modern twist in his use of oak. All right. So here's where we are kind of specifically, you see this is Piemonte as a whole, and you'll see that we're in the DOC of Langhe, and we're really closer to Alba. Most of these wines, or in fact, all of them are from Alba in this area. So there are smaller DOCs within here, and of course, this is where Barbaresco and Barolo are located, so the exact same sort of region. All of this area was formed by tectonic activity. There's quite a bit of limestone here, which, as we know, perhaps from prior classes, limestone is pivotal in creating wines with lively acidity. And when you're thinking about food pairing, you want your grapes to have this beautiful acidity, because that's what slices through the fat. I heard somebody's eating chicken Parmesan. I'm thinking that would be pretty good right about now to have these wines slice through that breaded and that cheesiness of that chicken Parmesan for sure. So let's talk about the grapes, because that is really what we're here for, is to drink them, right? We first have Barbera, which, as I said, I mean, we're drinking all native grape varieties. And this is the most widely planted grape grown in Piemonte. It's second most planted in Italy after Sangiovese, just to give you a better idea. And this is more of a high acid grape variety. Sometimes it's medium plus acidity, but the tannins really aren't that high. We're going to talk specifically about the Barbera from Giocosa get specific with it, but this is really a just easy drinking red for the most time. Let me tell you, there's god awful Barbera on the market. We've had this, like, stuff that's like 12, 15 bucks that really isn't that great. And then you have stuff that Giocosa is making that's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complex. It has much more than just like simple red fruit. So if you see, it's very durable and very productive. So it's grown in many places, including perhaps the places where it shouldn't be grown. And I think he's only sourcing from grower producers that are well or better suited to Barbera in particular. Any questions so far? Okay. And next we have Dolcetto. So Dolcetto translates to sweet little thing, which I really like. And this doesn't refer to the sweetness of the wine in general, because as we know, if we've tasted it, this wine is fermented dry. It just refers to the overall sugar levels in the grape sweetness. And it produces, as you can see from wine number 2, really deep, rich wines that are very fruity. This is an Italian table wine. So a lot of people think if you're going into Piemonte and you ask for, the vino della tavola, they're going to give you perhaps a Barbera or a Nebbiolo, but it's more often in Piemonte a simple Dolcetto. And it's just kind of like, kind of what you grow in your backyard and serve to your family members, I think, because it is, out of the 3, perhaps arguably the easiest to drink. And maybe you maybe you would like to disagree with me. I'm happy to have people disagree. I really like hearing others' opinions. If you think something is easier to drink, by all means, speak up and let me know. But I think this is just like fruity. It's really easy. And it's really cheerful. I don't really often describe many wines as cheerful, but it has this inherent fruitiness, bubblegumminess that's really, really nice. So that is Dolcetto. And then we have Nebbiolo, which is king, and it's considered, as I said, native to Piemonte, and it translates to foggy one. And of course, we've seen from the pictures of Piemonte that there's so much fog. So this could refer to the amount of fog within the subregion itself, or it could relate to, there's like a foggy, like sort of the layering, the milky layering that covers the outside of the skins right before harvest. So it could relate to that. I don't know. We don't know really the origin, or it could just simply not relate to fog and mean noble. So I like etymology. I don't know if you guys do. I was a linguist major, so I really do like the origin of words. This is a late ripener. So if there is a cold snap, the other grapes are insurance grapes, and this one is the one you kind of have to worry about, because if the cold winter frosts come or fall frosts come a little bit early, you kind of have to watch out for this. And this wine has searingly high acid and really high tannin. So higher quality, like very high quality Barolo, Barbaresco, these legally must be aged for between 2 and 5 years. It just depends on the labeling designation in order to soften up these tannins. That exposure to oak will soften the tannins. They actually polymerize the tannins. The tannins bind together when they're exposed to oxygen. They're minute traces, and they fall to the bottom after they've bound with color. So the tannins will soften over time when exposed to oak, and this is what this needs, I think, for sure. It's a beast. And when you're blind tasting it, or if you're ever just don't know what you're drinking and you turn it sideways, you'll see that there's this characteristic garnet color. Nebbiolo actually tends to oxidize very easily. So that means it will fade from ruby to this sort of pretty garnet color. And it's naturally really pale. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm drinking a Pinot Noir and it's going to be light and fruity and delicious like a Pinot, when in fact they're smacked with tannins and they're like, what is this? And so it's deceptively pale, and the body is just tremendous normally. It's known for its tar and roses profile too. So what that really means is that you're going to get a lot of like really dried rose. It's very floral, but it also has some textbook earthiness, and that could manifest as tar, but it also could manifest as wet leaves or mulch or barnyard. I don't know if you're sold on that. I used to ride horses, so I really like barnyard scents. I don't know. Any questions so far?
Daniela, I was wondering about the Dolcetto.
Yeah.
It definitely has a distinct flavor profile, but I'm hardly getting anything on the nose. Am I just having like a bad allergy day, or is anyone else experiencing that?
Yeah, so this could be a slow mover in terms of opening up. When did you open it, Denise? A while back?
I guess it was around noon.
Oh, wow, you opened it on noon? Okay.
Well, we share wines, so we have to find time in our schedules to
nice.
break open the wines.
Yeah, I think it's just not a very, in terms of like aromatics, we rate them in my classes like low, medium, and high, and it might just be a Shire wine, but I think on the palate, like all that fruitiness sort of comes to light. But I agree, it's not incredibly expressive aromatically.
Yeah,
for
sure.
It
was kind of a surprise to taste it when I was sitting there going, I hardly smell anything, but then you do get that big fruity flavor.
Yeah, Dolcetto does that. It surprises me all the time. I'm like, what is this dark, deep wine? And then I taste it. I'm like, whoa, this is more than I think I bargained for. It's great.
Yeah, they're all kind of surprising in terms of what you see, what you smell, and then what you taste.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're especially in sight, you think something's going to taste a certain way, especially that Nebbiolo. You're expecting something much lighter in body, and it's like, oh, okay,
yeah,
it's not what I thought.
Yes, and as you know, I was one of what I said to Daniela when we started, are you sure the Nebbiolo goes last?
yeah. Denise was like, I don't think this is right. I was like, trust me, the tannins on this bad boy, if we start with it, your palate will just be destroyed. Great, I'm gonna keep going. So let's talk about the man himself. He passed on about 3 years ago, actually, but he was born in 1929, And his father was involved in the wine business. In fact, the Jocosas were in the negociant business. So they were in the business of either buying or selling or both grapes to make wine. And so he actually was the first one in his family to understand where you could find top vineyard sites, and went through each and every one of his family's vineyards in order to identify the best sites and search for the best grapes for his father's business, which is really ahead of his time. That really wasn't done, that single vineyard bottling. And so he decided to create single vineyard bottlings, and everyone went crazy for them. And in fact, he was doing it at the time. So was Gaia. Gaia was another great example, as well as a few other producers. But really, he was one of the first winemakers in Italy to do so. He is best known for his Barbaresco, which was a Riserva Speciale. And still to this day, well, he's passed on now, but he used to say that this was his favorite wine, and remained even from the 61 vintage. He's very serious looking in photos, is he not? I don't think that's going to change. Yeah, he's still very, very austere. So as I said, he makes traditional wines, but they call him an enlightened traditionalist, which I really do like. So it's a bit of tradition with a modern twist. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Italy had actually a very poor reputation in the 50s and the 60s for producing unclean wines. And in fact, this is something that they're just now combating within the past 20 years, is creating wines that are more modern in style, meaning that they don't have faults. And I think volatile acidity was one of them, which smells like nail polish remover. And sometimes you get that in traditional older bottles, is that ethyl acetate, that nail polish scent. And so the way you combat that is through hygiene and better practices. So he, in addition to improving hygiene, brought in stainless steel tanks, which helps with that, and had temperature controlled fermentation, so you don't have these cooked, overly extracted wines. And he also chose to incorporate French oak, which we're probably very familiar with, over Slavonian oak, which was much more traditional choice for his botti, which was his bottle. So very large. You can see the oak barrel behind him for better reference of how large these barrels are. So you don't have huge amount of oak influence, which is really nice. You're not overpowering the Nebbiolo, but it's just enough, as I said, to soften those really harsh tannins. He also ages his wines for quite a long time. Like if he does his Barbaresco Riserva, I mean, those are minimum like 3.5 years. So this is a long period of time, which means that the grapes must be higher quality in order to withstand that long period of aging. And of course, you know, a lot of people think that you just you release everything in your cellar each year, and he held things back when he wasn't content with the quality, which I think speaks to really his standards in general. You can see I think he's probably in this picture thinking about his quality. It looks like there seems to be quite a bit of contemplation going on there. So of course we're sipping on these wines, so let's talk about them. We've already talked about the grapes themselves, but just a little bit of information on this. And I took out some of the tasting notes and put "you tell me," because I hate when people are like, this has notes of blah, 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 blah. And they don't really give you a chance to fully express what you guys are thinking. Because I often think that a lot of tasting notes are just written by a guy in New York at his desk who's getting paid much more than I probably am to write these tasting notes that really don't vary year after year. So we're going to kind of pay attention to this Barbera a little bit more. You do have the oak aging here. So 16 months in French oak. That's a long time. Let me tell you, that is not traditional for many like lower end producers. So there is TLC when it comes to the aging. And what are you guys picking up on this wine? I'd be interested to hear. Or any thoughts or comments before we talk about food pairing? Do you hate it?
No,
Okay,
a little bit rustic from Mary. Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of violets.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty floral. It's a little earthy. I think a lot of these wines all of these wines actually are food wines. You really need to be eating something. And I think this speaks to cuisine and Piemonte as a whole. I think when we think about going out for an Italian meal, we think about pizza margherita and pasta with sauce. And that's really actually not a representation of the entire country as a whole. In fact, each different region has their own cuisine. And so when you go into Piemonte, they're eating like sheep and cow. They're eating what's grazing in the Alps. And so these wines are meat wines, you guys. Like they're cured meat or fresh meat or what. Like it was in a tavern and the fire was roaring, and you order this really wonderful white bean stew or hunk of beef, and you have these wines, and this is really what they're for. So I hope that's the takeaway, food pairing wise, especially with this guy. But it's also a really great pizza wine. Like, let's be honest here. You can still pair it with the traditional Italian.
I'm getting olives, like that sort of, and I happen to be eating Kalamata olive hummus, and so I keep trying not to, and like, but then every time I taste this one, that's the first profile I get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What are you guys thinking? I know people are eating with this. I see some people eating.
Well, we are eating with it, but it's not the pairing. I mean, to me, the best pairing that you can get with like older Barolo is white truffle risotto all the way.
Yeah.
That's like death row meal. Like, you're going to die tomorrow. What do you want? Like, well, I'll take a 12-year Barolo with a lot of truffles shaved on top of some risotto. Thanks.
She's put a lot of thought into this.
Dude, I second this. I love this. Does anybody think about their death row meal as well? Like, I think about this all the time. It's really probably pretty morbid, but I think about it a lot. And it changes, doesn't it?
What kind of crime are you going to commit?
Apparently one that will allow me to buy truffles.
Yeah.
So something financial, I guess.
Yeah. It has to be bad enough to kill me, I guess. So it's probably killing another person. But the only crime I would commit was probably wine theft. And that's probably not enough.
I guess it depends on what country. I mean, France or Italy might take that pretty seriously.
That's true. Actually, that's a very good point. Cool. Well, here are the tech sheet, the notes on that dolcetto. I really like the sensory analysis here. The note of mocha. I think that's really pretty.
That's what we just.
Yeah, it's really fruity, really berry forward, I think. Mm-hmm. And the tannins are quite, like, they're quite firm. And this isn't a grape variety that's known for being aged simply because of the acidity levels are a little bit lower. So again, this is that juicy table wine. It's a little bit more approachable. And the whole point of it is to enjoy the richness of the fruit. So if you are with somebody that doesn't really enjoy earth as much, this might be a really good option. This is in fact the least expensive option out of them all. Any thoughts about this wine?
I really like this dolcetto. We actually got introduced to dolcetto a long time ago, but I'll tell you, which is what you said with Barbera, it is hard to find good dolcetto in the US.
Yep.
Like you can buy a $12 dolcetto and it's not drinkable. Like I would not just randomly select a dolcetto. I learned this after 12 like randomly selected dolcettos. Like that's not a good plan. Like you have to buy very specific producers. I mean,
Yeah, I completely agree. I tend to shy away from this great varieties sometimes just because I'm unsure of really what I'm getting. And that's why I'm really excited to turn the spotlight on a producer that I actually know and trust. And this isn't going to break my bank either. So it's comforting to know that there are definitely higher quality examples and it's not just this throwaway like table wine. That's a really good point.
it's lovely. Thank you for choosing it. I'm glad to be aware of it. But
Yeah.
just a warning to everyone, not all dolcettos are like this.
Are there other retailers in town? We know Westwood carries all of this. Are there other retailers in town that also carry?
So the merchant, the Austin wine merchant carries Jocosa. Is that right? Yeah. No, I know that they do. I just asked them. So I had somebody in my class that I asked because they worked at the merchant and they do carry this. They also carry I believe they carry the Barolo and Barbaresco. So if you guys are vibing with the last wine, that's Nebbiolo, I think this would be a good chance to pick up something a little bit higher priced and just try it on for size. But yes, Westwood's, I used to work for Westwood's Liquor, so it has a soft spot in my heart. And the buyer, Greg, brought in all three of these wines. So if you don't happen to have them in front of you tonight and you are curious about them in particular, go and check them out. I'm sure he'd be very happy. He has them hidden in the back for you, so you just have to ask for them.
He was very complimentary of you, Daniela. When I went to buy the wine, he said, "Do you know Daniela?" And I said, "No." And he said, "She's the sweetest person you'll ever meet." And he said, "You just got engaged," and he wanted to say hi to you. So,
Oh, that's so sweet. So I have a funny story about him. I trained him like a drill sergeant, and I didn't actually realize that he was one of the most, like, he was the old guard of wine retail buyers in Austin. Like, he knew exactly what he was doing, and I didn't know that. So I was like, "And this is how you order wine." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, Daniela, thanks." And I really thought that he was being nonchalant and wouldn't make it. And then I realized after talking to all these reps, the wine reps coming in, they're like, "Hey, what's up, Greg?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he's so confident." That's hilarious, but that's really nice. I'm glad that he still likes me after that. That's nice to hear. Okay, let's talk about this Nebbiolo. I'm sure we've all been sipping on it. I haven't, so I need to actually try it. Yeah, I mean the tannins on this thing are nuts, and it's got that trademark earthiness. I think the tar and roses thing is for sure a thing here. Yeah. I think this is something that needs like cured. It needs like prosciutto or something, or salami, because that actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but the protein in meat actually binds your tannin receptors and it'll make every wine feel softer. So that's something good to know. I mean, we talk about, red wine and meat, and we don't actually know the biological reason why you would pair them. It's not just because it tastes good together. well, it is because it tastes good together, but biologically it's softening the wine. It's so cool. Salt does the same thing. So if you have something really tannic and your friend doesn't like it, pour some salt on their meal and trick them into enjoying Nebbiolo. Yeah, just sprinkle. It's fine.
Hey, Daniela, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
So I understand the maceration is malic acid. Can you tell me about what it's like in Italy, I guess? So I know
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, so maceration is essentially the time that the juice spends in contact with skins.
Okay.
And that will do a number of things. It'll deepen the color. So the longer wine spends in contact with skins, the deeper the color, and the higher the tannin, because the color and the tannin are found in the skins. I'm sure you probably know that, but yeah, sometimes actually traditionally maceration in Barolo was very long. It was a few weeks long because they were preparing your tannic Barolo to sit in botti for several years, in fact. And so now this is a much easier early drinking style. So the lesser maceration makes sense because you don't want face ripping tannins in a young wine. It gets really unpleasant. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. Any other thoughts, comments? I think it's a party now, isn't it? Is anybody a few
I
glasses
love the
in?
Nebbiolo. This is like hits all my notes.
Yeah.
I like the acidity and but it's like really fresh. I like the barnyard. So I'm really enjoying this one.
Nice. I'm really glad. This is your final wine of
Oh.
like so it has to be good, right?
And the salty meats make a difference. I ran to my fridge and I was like, I'm pretty sure I have some salami in there, and it makes a huge difference. Really, I mean, it really.
Oh, really? Did you
Yeah.
actually? Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, it's amazing. Like it's amazing how much it will transform everything. Because by itself, sometimes I think, European wines, it's hard to sit down and have a glass. In America, we're so used to coming home after an 80-hour work week and pouring a glass of something juicy and being like, oh God, like I'm so overworked and exhausted and I just want to get drunk. And that's what I think New World wines are really great at. They're really great at getting you drunker faster because you have 14% plus ABV, where these European wines are acidic and they need food. And they are an ingredient, folks. They actually transform a dish. And that is why there's such a strong food and wine pairing culture in Europe, because of its history, its extensive history, its tradition of what grows together goes together. And I think this is something that we need to catch up on because it's magical to have a wine and a dish go so well together that time stops and the angels sing.
And the dogs bark.
And the dogs bark.
Honestly, I think Texas is getting there. I mean, Tempranillo and barbecue, pretty much a great pairing. Like that smoked meat and that smoked grape work well, similar to, the things that you're talking about with, Pinot and Epoix and, smoked meats and Italian and all that. I mean, so it takes a while for people to give up on the Cabernet dream,
Oh, trust me.
I'm going to be a winery. I'm going to grow Cabernet. No, you're not. It's too hot. So, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. I think to Texans' credit, they'll drink full-bodied red wines all year round, which leads me to believe that they could be more open-minded with styles like this, even when it's 110 degrees out. So that gives me hope for a bright future. And yeah, people are open-minded. I think you're right. I think if you pour these wines and you explain what they go to, you have a barbecue pairing or something like that, with them. I think people are very eager to choose these wines in the future, and they will.
Denise Clark, I bet you have some thoughts on that.
She's asking you whether you have thoughts on that. She can't hear
yeah,
me because
think
of
about
the.
Tannat, Alianico.
Yeah.
Those are big tannic reds.
Can you hear her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh.
Yeah, you just have to speak loud.
Yes, for sure. Like you think about some of the big Tannats, Alianico. I mean, they have some really nice tannins and they're really great with food like these are. So yeah, I think we're going to see more and more varieties that Texans are going to be introduced to that have those same kind of characteristics. They'll never have, to me, or no, I shouldn't say never, but they're always going to be a little more fruit forward because they're New World versus what I love in Old World wines is the real earthiness of them. But yeah, you're going to keep seeing some of these big tannic wines coming out of Texas.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, I can't hear, so I didn't know that was a question.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I know. But she's kindly muted the entire thing just so I can hear because my computer's malfunctioning. So I'll keep you informed of.
And for those of you who, I think most of you know Denise, but for those of you who don't know Denise Clark, she represents Texas fine wine. And so I figured once we started talking about the Texas tannic wines that Denise would have some comments for us. She knows all about Texas wine.
Yeah, she's representing some of the best
Yeah.
wineries for sure. Absolutely.
I have a quasi off-topic question for Daniela.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of the whites from the Piedmont making their way into the U.S.?
Yeah, I actually have a confession. I really wanted to pour one, but they were out of stock. So Mandy pulled me a sample of one. I'm really sorry. I didn't want to be drinking white wine and then you'd be like, hey, what is happening? So yeah, I'll grab that too. Or Mandy's got it in her thing or I can pour it. So this is called Rorero Arnase. So the grape is Arnase and it's Giacosa as well. It's Giacosa and it's 2019. And this is also normally available at the merchant, but it was back ordered. So this is amazing. Like this is really, oh, this is fresh vintage. Okay. Yeah, it's incredible. Like very floral, gorgeous, honeyed, like the aromatics on this, they actually call this white Nebbiolo, which is really interesting. And yeah, the whole point is to drink it sort of young. I don't think I've ever had an aged expression because it's the floral, the aromatic, the honeysuckle is incredible. So yes, please look for that. It's Arnase, Arneis. Wow, I've got a dyslexic moment. I got so excited, really. Any other questions? Well, did you guys have fun? At least learn something about Piemonte, hopefully?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Fun.
No, I really enjoyed it.
Good. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I think these were very surprising to me. Every it was, every one of them was unexpected.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And I think the first go round was so different than the next go round for me because, tasting it when you're talking about the grapes and then tasting it again after it had a little bit more time and a little bit more salami. It just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think fresh out of the bottle, they're pretty tight and not extremely expressive. So I agree. They need some time to chill.
And Denise, I'm just putting in a plug that, when we're back scheduling for in person, I would pay, cash money for a Barolo Barbaresco class.
Yeah.
Because those wines are really sort of the highest and best expression. So also if you find the whites, now I need to try that. Thanks, Daniela.
Sorry.
I hadn't drunk enough already tonight. But, I mean, those are even the reds are more aromatic when they're a little older, which is strange, but for Barolo and Barbaresco. So, I mean, that would be a lovely class if there's ever a opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. It'll go on our list of ideas tab on our spreadsheet.
I can't wait to get all the in-person events up and running too. This will be fun to finally see people and interact, because it's hard to interact on a screen and see y'all's body language and see you just get pumped about these amazing wines. It's hard to when everybody's on mute. So I'm really excited to, okay, somebody's partying in the background. That's good. You know, I think it's this, you know, wine's all about community. So and speaking of, if you guys are interested and want more classes, I know the Food and Wine Foundation is doing an incredible job of supporting sommeliers and highlighting us. But also we've got the Texas Wine School, and we've been partnering with various other sommeliers, and well, it's really me. I'm a one-woman show that's partnering with them. But if you ever want certifications or classes, we can offer those too. And we typically meet in one place, but we can roam around. And if you ever need somebody to do a food and wine pairing or a wine class, that is my job. So this is literally what I do for a living. And I have, you know, the best job in the world. And I showcase mainly French wines, but again, like, this is such a treat to be able to talk about not only a different region, but one of the best producers within the region.
Well, we'll have to have you back for a French wine class soon. And
Nice.
yeah, all for promoting your classes. There's no competition here. We want to, you know, make sure our members are aware of every opportunity, and we would love to have you back for sure. So before we sign off, I'd love to do our last sip, and I'd love to hear from everyone what your takeaways from this class were. I can start. I have a few things, and I think first of all, I was shocked about 2,000 native grape varieties in Italy that I had no idea about. Someone's knocking at my door. I'm ignoring it. But the other thing that I think my biggest takeaway was what grows together. There's definitely someone at my door. What grows together goes together. And when you were talking about, like, people come, can you still hear me with him? He's so annoying. Okay. When you were talking about people come home from work and they just want to, you know, drink a New World wine and get drunk, and that's so true. And this is just it's a different experience, and also the next day is a different experience. Like, really, it really is. I mean, you can see the difference. So that was a big takeaway for me. I'm going to stop talking and go yell at my dog. But who else has some takeaways for tonight? Take yourselves off mute.
The Albrechts here, and we just want to say that our takeaway is we're happy to have Daniela as a new instructor. We really enjoyed your style, and we like your idea about a certification. And also, we need to get together after class as new neighbors. So that's our takeaway.
Oh, did Josephine House or Jeffrey's for some wine? What are we thinking?
Yes, love both of them. Yes.
Okay, well, I could literally walk there, so we'll have to exchange, you know, digits, and you guys are gonna be my new best friends.
Okay, excellent.
Great.
Sorry, I did actually need to answer that. My son's friend is here, and his mom was here to pick him up. Not a good one to ignore. Anyone else? Last thoughts? The takeaways? Big kind of any mind-blowing things you'll remember from tonight?
Oh, I love the Barbera, and I love the Barbera, and Daniela, I really loved your class. Thank you. It was perfect, and I'm really excited, and I want to be a part of that meeting at Jeffrey's or But I'm in. We're in.
Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot. I know hopefully what people really vibe with and people don't, and I don't want to slog through the various soil types of Piemonte and get, everybody kind of nodding off. So I think wine should be a party. I really enjoyed you guys, and I'm actually going to enclose my email in case anyone wants to get a glass of wine, hang out. We could just have a big Jeffrey's Josephine House little get together. Mandy is definitely inviting herself to this as well, it looks like. But Mandy's actually, thanks to Mandy for providing the materials or providing the wines too, because this is actually part of her portfolio. And if you guys have any questions on where to find it, she is the lady to ask.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I agree, Daniela. This was a great class, and really kind of loved the flow of the way you presented the wines and the background and all of that. So we're really grateful for you being here, and to circle back on a French wine class and maybe an Italian white wine class too, because that's something I think we're all interested in. So yeah, we'll definitely get that on the roster. Unless anyone has any other parting thoughts.
Can't wait for the Death Row Dinners class. Daniela.
Oh my God.
Good idea.
Can we have
I actually do have a quick question for Mandy. I mean, I saw that earlier on one of the slides that he was producing single vineyard Barbaresco. Yeah. So does Merchant carry the single vineyards or just the sort of all the?
They're very limited in production and what comes into market. And the next vintage will be released soon. So be on the lookout.
Okay. Yeah, I suspected there weren't a lot of it. That's why I thought there might not be any at all. So.
But he could be sitting on a little bit, and then I might still have a little bit stateside too that he could bring in if there's a particular interest in a specific one.
Yeah. See, that would be a super fun class. Like, this is all Nebbiolo grape. This is this vineyard. This is this vineyard. This is this vineyard. I'm sorry, Denise. I feel like I just keep adding rows to your Excel spreadsheets.
No, but that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. So yeah, I mean, and we send around the surveys after the class, and this is where we get our ideas. So please, we want to create classes that you all want to participate in. So no apology necessary. Tanya, stop breaking wine glasses. We're only an hour in.
Yeah, no, but I want to say what my takeaway is that I had never heard of, I didn't know that Slavonian oak was a thing. And my mom was born and raised in Slavonia. And now I have to check out our family farm there to see if we're growing any oak trees, because I want to get in on that. All I've seen there are plums and cows and pigs. And so I have to go check it for oak. So that's what I'm doing next time I make it back home.
Fun. You could become a cooper. Like you could create a cooperage there.
What is that? What is that? What's a cooper?
Oh, sorry. It's like a barrel making facility.
Oh.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
There's another takeaway for you.
That's my pivot. Yeah.
Love it. Great. Anything else before we sign off tonight?
We just wanted to say thanks, and we really enjoyed the class. Was very interesting, and loved the wine. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here.
And I just wanted to add that this was my first exposure to Nebbiolo, and I think I have a new favorite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it only gets better from here. So check out Barbaresco and Barolo, and I guarantee your mind is about to be even more blown.
That's a big takeaway. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. This was a great class. My pizza should be arriving soon, so I'll have a good palette to mix that with, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys at a future class. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys. Yeah, email me. Let's get together.
Thanks, Daniela. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.